Hello, friends and readers. Today is Wednesday, June 15th, 2022. Thank you for joining me. I'm doing our chat a little backwards today, and let me explain why. If you are a regular here, you'll know that I usually spend a minute or so after at the end running through the business points that make it necessary for these chats to pull their own weight. And if you subscribe to other YouTube people, you know what I'm talking about. Well, after taking a look at my script for today, AC insisted he doesn't want to burden our closing with me asking for business. But there are new people every week, so I'm going to quickly go over it now. If you aren't already connected, now is a great time to click that big red subscribe button just below me. And do please give me a thumbs up for today's chat, if you like it. And of course, the address of my Amazon page is in the description below. All my published Walkerville stories are available there. Please bookmark it for yourself and share with a friend. All right, thanks for your patience. And now, I first met Louise when I was 33. And a few weeks ago, I celebrated my 74th birthday. I had noticed her a few years before I actually met her. It was at the beach down on 38th Avenue, and I don't know if the public can even access it anymore, but back then, you could if you knew where to find the path down to the sand. I was playing with my son, who was about 4 or 5 at that time. He was catching waves, getting his feet wet. We'd rolled up his pant legs, and he was having so much fun. And then I heard some laughter behind me, and I turned around, and I noticed this woman with boundless energy who was loving, happy, open. She had 3 young boys with her, and they were all talking over each other and laughing. After finding the perfect spot, the youngest boy carefully scouted the area. The 4 of them began to dig, scooping up sand, laughing, talking earnestly amongst themselves. I don't know what they were building. I turned back to my son, and I wondered if he was okay being an only child. 41 years ago, I felt 2 notions that were diametrically inconsistent. One, that I loved my son unconditionally. Believing this kept me alive, while the second was my chronic depression. Returning from France and entering adolescence occurred at the same time, and my depression took root like a low-grade fever. My mental health hounded me, and I lived with this secret as I self-medicated. After several years living at cross purposes, I sought help with someone I trusted and who I knew could help me. My therapist, Frances, asked me a very simple question. Do you drink to feel better? It was late winter, and the trees outside her office were already budding. I could hear birds chirping. And it took me forever to answer her question because I wanted to be completely honest. I started going to 12-step meetings per her instructions. Actually, what Frances said was, if you don't stop drinking, if you don't go to AA, I'm not going to be your therapist anymore. So I went to a few meetings, and I couldn't believe when she showed up at some of those same meetings. She spoke candidly about her life. She was unafraid of being judged and unashamed of her vulnerabilities. She awoke something in me that I'd been stuffing for a long time. Feelings. In the vernacular of 12-step meetings, I asked her to be my sponsor. Louise opened my heart. Quietly she said, "Let us love you till you can love yourself." My throwaway self shrugged my shoulders, and like a frightened child, I challenged, "Oh, yeah?" Louise helped me to identify feelings. She encouraged me to use my voice, to express warmth, disappointment, curiosity, anger. She supported the real me showing up for my life. She encouraged me to write. She was the first person to acknowledge my depression and not try to talk me out of it. I remember in the late 80s, she sent me a Richard Stein card with an ink drawing of a person in the Valley of Depression. I laughed out loud when I got it. That helped me pull out of the depression. I remember once being in her front yard pulling weeds. She was sitting on her porch and we were talking. Or I was talking because I had just gotten fired. I'd never been fired before. I was ashamed, baffled, confused, incensed. My self-esteem was zilch. Today, I have no clue. I can't remember what that job was. What I do remember is looking at my hands, dirty, fingers edged with gunk, my denim-clad knees caked with mud, Louise sitting on the porch, periodically pointing out a weed I'd missed. I made a comment that would shape my life and continues to shape my life. I have the choice right now to be depressed or not be depressed. Louise actually laughed at me and said, "Finally!" That was a turning point for me. Choices in my life was a new concept. It changed my world. I had a choice of changing everything from the brand of my toothpaste to my profession. This moment of clarity does not mean I no longer get depressed. Rather, when the world bleeds black, I know it's temporary. It'll pass. It may take a while, but it'll pass. Freedom. I knew every payphone from the east side of Santa Cruz to Watsonville back then, and I kept a roll of quarters in my car for calls to Louise. I once called her when I was on my way to have coffee with a married man. Some part of me knew this was not just about a cup of coffee, and that's why I was calling her. What she asked me was so infuriating, so piercing that I hung up on her. "What's your motive?" she asked. Lesson learned. I woke up the next day feeling sufficient. The choice I made was enough. Nothing was taken from me and much was given to me. I have asked this question of many people since. Louise was a huge part of my life for many years, and then like Renee, who I talked about last week, love took her around the world and across the country. We didn't see each other for many years except for the occasional phone call or letter. Yes, we wrote letters back then. But I always knew she was there no matter how long it had been since our last contact. For years, Louise encouraged me to write. She kept me supplied with poetry books and those blank journals. She was thrilled when I published my Walkerville books. She apologized for not being a romance writer and told me she loved me and knew I had it in me. The last few times we Zoomed, she appeared confused, uninterested, bored. I didn't take this personally. I was more concerned and wondered if her health was failing. She has family in this area, so after 4 years, 2 of them because of COVID, she made the trip with her youngest son just last week. I was surprised she still drove, and she was insulted that I thought otherwise. She was radiant. Her hair still dark, although she bent down to show me sprouting gray hairs. She has been dressing in the Langen look, style for years that the oversized layered tops are perfect for her. She's elegant and she dresses to please no one but herself. We sat out in the sun catching up. We both agreed that COVID was great for us because we really loved staying at home. We talked about aging, health, happiness, well-being, food. We talked about several mutual friends who died over the past few years, some pandemic-related and others not. We talked in non sequiturs, floating from what the best meal was that we ate last week, to her grandson's graduation, to her professor's son who's retiring next year, about her other sons and their lives, and her daughters-in-law. I felt my eyes misting, and a few tears trickled down my face, and Louise leaned over, taking my hand. Should I not talk about the boys? I shook my head. I want to hear about them. I know them. I just feel sad because, well, I don't have a son who's alive. We sat in silence for a few minutes, each of us remembering a phone call years ago that I made to her. When my son's body was found in 2000, she was the first person I called. Louise was living in South Carolina with the love of her life. She answered the phone, and all I could say was, Louise. And without missing a beat, she whispered, it's going to be okay. I just wept for the longest time. Incoherently, I told her what had happened. She sent me a single red Gerber daisy, traditionally a symbol of innocence and purity. Finally, because after 41 years, if I can't be honest with Louise, I don't know who I can be honest with. Probably AC. But I told her I'd been concerned the last few times we spoke over the phone or on Zoom, and she seemed so disengaged, bored, forgetful. Louise is from a French background, and she did one of those pure Gallic moves, one shoulder shrugged slightly, the same hand flipping back and forth. Comme ci, comme ça, so. Frankly, she said, it comes and goes. Sometimes I notice, sometimes I don't. I don't worry about it. I'm 80, she pointed out matter-of-factly. I'm done. I've had a great life. There's nothing more I want to do. Quickly, I calculated all the things I still wanted to do, was planning on doing. She said, Jackson's got your number. He's got a list of people he needs to call when I'm gone. He knows you, so it'll be good for him to call you. Jackson is her youngest, the one I spotted all those years ago looking for the perfect sand digging location. I crossed my arms. Are you saying goodbye? I asked seriously. She burst out laughing. Not yet, but just know I'm ready. Thank you for being here with me today. It matters so much. As I told you at the top, everything you need to know is down below in the description, including the link for next week's chat. I hope we can be together again and again. Thank you so much for joining me today.